report. I'm Amy Goodman. As the United States goes to the polls, we turn now to an on-the-ground report from the Battleground state of Ohio. Rolling Stone investigative reporter Greg Palast has uncovered the latest in vote suppression tactics that could threaten the integrity of the vote in Ohio and North Carolina.
So your brother's bound and gagged, and they've chained him to a chair. Won't you please come to Ohio just to sing?
All of America votes, but it's Ohio that decides who's going to be the president and who controls the Senate of the United States. There are those on both sides who say the vote can be hacked.
The revelation comes as investigators are confident Russia is behind several recent cyber attacks to influence the U.S. elections.
In Ohio in 2004, the mismatch of exit polls and the machine count that put George W. Bush back in the White House raised questions of the integrity of Ohio's voting machines. They had no paper ballots to allow an audit of the vote. But today, many new voting machines in Ohio have a built-in safety feature.
Well, machines now can actually take a ballot image in the sequence of every single one cast to eliminate fraud if somebody tampers with the paper ballots.
There's only one problem.
They've decided to turn off the security.
Election law attorney Robert Fitrakis represents Republicans and Democrats. He just discovered that the photo image and audit protection functions have literally been shut off.
So they bought state-of-the-art equipment and turned off the security.
We followed Fitrakis into state court in Columbus. He's seeking to order the Republican Secretary of State to turn on all the voter protections on the machines. We weren't allowed to film, but Republican officials argued that it would require a massive effort to turn on the protection applications.
It's a drop-down box. Just like on your computer. Do you want ballot images of every ballot cast? You would think yes. Same thing for the audit log.
The judge, a Republican appointee, disagreed. He ruled that the Republican officials could leave the machines unprotected. On Sunday, I was at the Freedom Faith Missionary Baptist Church. They're building their spirits to prepare to join other black churches from all over Ohio for Souls to the Polls Sunday voting. So they went to the one voting station for all of Dayton and waited in line to vote. And waited. And waited. And waited and waited. 70% of the state's African Americans vote early. The line snaked up and down 3 floors and out into the parking lot.
I had a friend, she just texted me, and she said that she was going home because she worked the 3rd shift and she couldn't stand in the long lines.
Why? Because Republican Secretary of State John Husted said all counties can have only one single voting station on Souls to the Polls Day.
She wanted to vote today.
So they just make it, do you think that it's deliberate to make it harder for the day for African American voters?
Yeah, and other minorities, yeah. Yes, I do.
Indeed, Husted wanted to end Souls to the Polls Sunday voting entirely, but he was blocked by local officials. This is former Montgomery Elections Board member David Lieberman.
And we had voted, both the Republicans and Democrats, for long hours on weekends so that people like this could come and vote. After we did that, we were told by the Secretary of State that if we didn't change our vote, that he would fire us.
And so what happened?
I got fired. If you want to eliminate that early voting, then yeah, the effect is a racial effect.
And finally, we've uncovered a bigger threat than long lines or compromised machines. It comes out of the GOP's and Donald Trump's claim of voter fraud.
This voting system is out of control. You have people, in my opinion, that are voting many, many times.
Say what, Donald?
You have people, in my opinion, that are voting many, many times.
Reflecting Trump's claim of multiple voting Democrats, GOP-controlled states have purged nearly 1 million voters accused of voting or registering in 2 states. Ohio's Republican Secretary of State has a secret list of a whopping 497,000 double voting suspects. We got our hands on this confidential list, including such would-be criminal voters as Donald Alexander Alexander Webster Jr., who supposedly voted a second time in Virginia as Donald Eugene Webster Sr. We met with the would-be double voter.
Donald Eugene Webster. That's not my middle name.
Eugene is not your middle name?
No.
You ever use the name Eugene?
No.
They say you do.
Mm-mm.
You know that it's a crime if you vote more than once?
Of course. It never occurred to me to do that. You know, what's 2 votes going to do when you got thousands and thousands and thousands? You got to have a bunch of people doing that.
Well, do you? Are you part of a large conspiracy?
No, I'm not, sir.
In fact, nearly 2 million voters on the list, called cross-check, have middle names that don't match. Like this one, Maria Isabel Hernandez, is supposed to be the same voter as Maria Cristina Hernandez. Who's on the list? Names like Hernandez, Wong, Garcia, Jackson. Our experts have calculated that fully 1 in 6 voters of color are on the Republican blacklist. We've asked voting rights attorney Fitrakis why Ohio's Republicans would use this cross-check scheme.
He knows what he's doing is illegal. What he's doing is counting on bigotry to get away with it. He's picking first and last names only because he doesn't want to actually match people by using the middle name. He wants to purge blacks and Hispanics, and he's trying to make Ohio winnable in the only way he knows how, by stealing American citizens' votes.
In North Carolina, we spoke to the man who brought cross-check to the South, Colonel Jay Delancey of the Voter Integrity Project.
It's interstate cross-check. Okay, these are the states.
When confronted with evidence of cross-check's racial bias, he chuckled.
And you would think that Jim Crow rose from the dead.
It's a brand new Jim Crow. Today, on Election Day, they're not going to use white sheets to keep away black voters. Today, they're using spreadsheets.
Won't you please come to
From Ohio, this is Greg Palast reporting for Democracy Now!
And Greg Palast joins us now from Columbus, Ohio. Greg, thanks so much for that report, Rolling Stone investigative reporter. Explain further this cross-check list and what happens when people come up against it. Do they know they're coming up against it?
No, they don't. It's really devious. And remember, the lists are secret. You know, you can tell from my hat that I'm an investigative reporter. So I got a hold of their secret lists, Amy. There are 7 million names on it, 7.2 million Americans suspected of voting twice, and about 1 million, from the information we received from Virginia, about 1 million will find their names missing today when they go to vote. They'll be given provisional ballots, which, if they're missing from the voter rolls, fair or not, they lose their vote. So about 1 in 7 of the 7 million are going to be without a vote today, and 30 Republican states concentrated in Ohio and in North Carolina. This could flip the Senate. Very good chance that this alone could flip the Senate.
Explain again Donald Webster's story. And did this happen this year?
Oh, yeah. No, this is we just filmed him for my movie. And his name is Donald Alexander Webster Jr. And according to the GOP blacklist, he is supposedly registered a second time to vote as Donald Eugene Webster Sr. Now, it's not just, at least 2 million of the names are on their face mismatched. And they say they use Social Security numbers to match people and say, oh, these are double voters. But those Social Security numbers are absolutely not used and absolutely missing. And it's because we got the list that we found out that they're removing literally 1 million people without any evidence and without even, you have to understand, they're not notifying people you are accused of voting twice. They're just going, poof, you're gone. Your problem. This is one of the biggest, this is the biggest purge game I've seen since Florida knocked off the fake felons, which I discovered back in 2000, accusing black men of being criminals and who can't vote. But in fact, their only crime is voting while black. At least they put an F next to their name so they knew that they were falsely accused of being felons. You don't know why you're removed. You're marked inactive or you simply vanish.
And so you can insist on a provisional ballot. And when do those get counted?
Well, if you're not on the voter rolls, Amy, you can't get counted. That's why it's provisional. The only thing that they do is check if your name is somehow in the central machine. They do not, even if they say, oh, yeah, you're not a double voter, you committed no crime, but you don't get your vote back. And you know it's suspect because if 1 million people really committed the crime of voting twice, you'd arrest them. You go to jail for 5 years, but they're not arresting people because they know their list is phony. And you could see it, but we literally just had to get it out the back door because they've kept it tightly under wraps. They don't want you to know who they're accusing. But I will tell you this, it's 1 in 6 voters of color in those 30 Republican states. 1 in 6 voters of color, Asian Americans.
Now,
especially.
it's Ohio Secretary of State Husted who was responding to Donald Trump's charge of a rigged election, who said it's not. So your response to Trump and Husted insisting that the election is not rigged?
Well, it is rigged, and they should know because it's their buddies who are rigging it. And that's one of the problems. Chris Kobach, the white supremacist Secretary of State of Kansas, is the one who received all the lists and put them together. He secretly sent them out, and they're kept under wraps. And it becomes a hit list of voters of color once again. Now, in the case of Donald Webster, both of them, we don't let people go on camera and become our guinea pigs. We save their votes. And all you have to do is have some contact with your Secretary of State's office and get your vote back. But so most of those people will get their votes back, but 1 million, as of today, on this important day, will not.
And finally, in the media, the only real discussions are hacking of email, not hacking of voting machines. The beginning of your piece talked about that and the security that's turned off. Explain that further.
It's crazy. People have complained that voting machines don't have an audit trail and no picture of your ballot, no ballot. In fact, many of the new machines in Ohio and elsewhere actually have this function. And in Ohio, they deliberately turned off the audit function and turned off the function that takes a picture of every one of your marks on your ballot and times it so you can see if anyone's played games with those ballots. They have turned off those security features, and the courts say, well, they haven't stolen the election yet. Come back. If it's stolen, then you can complain. But once you can't go back in time and turn on the security features. You have to wonder, Amy, why in the world would you take off this valuable security feature, especially when the big bad Russians are supposed to hack our machines? Maybe it's not the Russians who are hacking our machines.
Greg Palast, I want to thank you for being with us on the ground in Ohio. Greg Palast, Rolling Stone investigative reporter. His new film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, a tale of billionaires and ballot bandits, available online at gregpalast.com at no charge today. And we'll link to your piece in Rolling Stone, The GOP Stealth War Against Voters. The subtitle, Will an anti-voter fraud program designed by one of Trump's advisors deny tens of thousands their right to vote in November?